My name is Eleanor James. I'm 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I found something buried inside an old shoebox that completely shattered how I saw my family and myself. It wasn't money. It wasn't some scandalous photo. It was a letter written by my mother, tucked away behind a stack of faded receipts and hospital bills, wrapped in a ribbon I recognized from one of her Christmas craft boxes. I almost missed it, but once I read the first line, everything changed. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever found out something about your family that made you question everything? And before I take you deeper into what this letter revealed and how it turned my whole life upside down, make sure to hit like and subscribe. I tell real stories about family secrets, betrayal, and redemption. You might just see yourself in one of them. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My apartment was silent that night, the kind of silence that hums in your ears when you've been alone too long. I was kneeling on the hardwood floor, sorting through boxes I'd brought home from my mom's assisted living room after she passed. Nothing glamorous, just clothes that smelled faintly of lavender and Lysol, her church books, a brittle rosary with a broken chain, and a few trinkets I couldn't quite throw away yet. I hadn't cried at her funeral, not because I wasn't grieving, but because a strange kind of numbness had taken over. The kind that builds over years of doing everything right and never being seen for it. I was the oldest, the dependable one, the nurse, the single daughter who canceled vacations to take mom to her checkups and worked double shifts to cover her medications. And yet somehow I was always too serious, too sensitive, or not as successful as Jacob. My baby brother, mom's golden child. When she died, I expected grief. What I didn't expect was resentment. Resentment for the unspoken truth I had swallowed my whole adult life, that in this family, love came with conditions, and I had never quite met them. So when I found that letter, folded 3 times, labeled only with my name and a date, I wasn't prepared. The date was 5 years ago. She had written it, but never gave it to me. Her handwriting trembled on the first line. Ellie, I hope you never read this, but in case I'm no longer here, I want to explain something that I've never had the courage to tell you in person. My chest tightened. My mom wasn't one to apologize. She was kind, yes, thoughtful, but emotionally distant in the way that leaves invisible scars. She always loved Jacob more openly, more proudly. I used to think I was just imagining it. But the rest of the letter? It confirmed everything I feared, and more. I sat on the edge of my couch, clutching that letter, the words burning into me like acid. Mom had written that after Dad's accident, the insurance company had paid out more than $300,000. For years, I thought we'd gotten nothing, that we barely scraped by because there was nothing to collect. I worked double shifts, $8 menu dinners, and skipped doctor's appointments for myself just to keep us afloat. But here, in her own shaky handwriting, Mom admitted she had turned all of it over to Jacob. She wrote, Ellie, I know this may sound unfair, but Jacob has potential. He can build something big if he just has the resources. You are strong on your own. You don't need this money to survive. You never have. I trust you to make it without my help. I stared at those lines until they blurred. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I would be sick. All those years, I thought we were broke. I thought every unpaid bill was on me. Every debt, every sacrifice. And the truth was, the money had been there all along, just not for me. I dropped the letter onto the coffee table and let out a sound I didn't even recognize. Half laugh, half sob. You don't need this money to survive. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I picked up my phone before I could stop myself. My hands were trembling as I dialed Jacob. He picked up on the second ring. Ellie, everything okay? His voice was casual, almost distracted, like he was multitasking. I imagined him in his big house, probably in that home office with the mahogany desk Mom always bragged about. I found something. I said, my voice low. A letter. From Mom. There was a pause, too long. Oh, what did it say? You know damn well what it said, Jacob. $300,000. She gave it to you. All of it. Another pause, then a sharp exhale. Ellie, Mom made her choice. She wanted me to have it. She knew I could actually turn it into something. And I did. I built my business with that seed money. I've employed dozens of people. That money wasn't wasted. I gripped the phone tighter. And what about me? What about the years I spent paying off her hospital bills, maxing out credit cards just to keep the lights on? What about the vacations I never took, the debt I'm still drowning in? Did she ever think I deserved a little relief? Jacob's voice hardened. You were fine, Ellie. You always managed. Mom used to say, you're like Dad, resilient. I was the one who needed the help. And besides, you had the honor of being there for her. Isn't that worth more than money? The audacity of those words nearly knocked the breath out of me. The honor. As if sacrificing my 30s, my health, my relationships was some kind of privilege. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, you knew. All this time, you knew what she did, and you said nothing. Jacob didn't even flinch. It wasn't my secret to tell, and frankly, I don't feel guilty. I deserved it. The line went quiet, then he added, you need to let this go. Digging this up isn't going to change anything. He hung up before I could reply. I sat there in the silence of my tiny apartment, the hum of my old refrigerator, the only sound. My pulse thudded in my ears. My brother had just confirmed everything. The money was gone, and so was the illusion that my family had ever been fair. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. My mind went back over the years like a film reel. The night I worked a 14-hour ER shift, then came home to Mom crying over unpaid rent. The Christmas Jacob surprised the family with expensive gifts. A flat screen for Mom, a designer purse for Aunt Ruth, while I handed out knitted scarves I'd made during night shifts. He'd brushed past me like I was invisible. The time I pawned my dad's old watch to cover Mom's insulin, only to see Jacob post photos of himself in Vegas, holding champagne with some client. I pressed my palms to my eyes, fighting the tears, not because of the money, but because of what it meant, that Mom had looked at me, her eldest daughter, the one who had been there every step of the way, and decided I didn't need her help, that I would be fine without it. But I wasn't fine. Not then. Not now. The betrayal was a slow burn that finally caught fire. I thought about calling my Aunt Vivian, Dad's sister. She had always been distant, but she held the purse strings for what little remained of the family inheritance. Would she have known? Did she know Mom funneled everything to Jacob? Instead, I poured myself a glass of cheap red wine, the kind that leaves your tongue dry, and sank onto the couch. The letter still sat on the table, daring me to pick it up again. I did, and this time I noticed something I had skimmed past before. At the bottom, scribbled almost as an afterthought, Mom had written, I hope you'll forgive me one day. Jacob promised he would always take care of you. A bitter laugh tore from my throat. Jacob? The same brother who ignored my texts when I asked for help fixing my car, who had once borrowed my rent money and never paid it back. He was supposed to take care of me? The injustice wrapped around my chest like a vice. It wasn't just unfair. It was cruel. And for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than grief. I felt rage. I didn't sleep that night. The city outside my window was alive with sirens and distant laughter, but my apartment was suffocatingly quiet. The letter sat on my coffee table like a loaded gun. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom's handwriting. You don't need this money to survive. For 38 years, I had been the reliable one, the one who stayed, the one who worked holidays at the hospital, who skipped weddings and weekends away, who came home bone-tired but still stopped by Mom's apartment with groceries and her prescriptions. And yet, I was disposable, invisible. By sunrise, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't going to let Jacob or Mom's ghost define me anymore. If Jacob had built an empire on stolen money, I was going to build something of my own out of the ashes of what he left me with. And this time, I wasn't going to play nice. The first thing I did was call out of work. For the first time in almost a decade, I didn't drag myself into the hospital for a 12-hour shift. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed in accelerated public health programs near me. My hands moved with a certainty I hadn't felt in years. I'd always dreamed of going back to school, maybe getting into community health or social work, but I never had the time or the money. Now, with the little savings I'd scraped together and a small inheritance check from Dad's sister that had been sitting untouched in my drawer for years, just $6,000, I decided to gamble on myself. I clicked apply on a program at the University of Pittsburgh. 3 semesters, intensive, brutal. But if I finished, I'd have credentials Jacob could never take from me. Still, education wasn't enough. I needed the truth. The whole truth. That meant facing Jacob head on, not with rage, but with proof. That's when I called Jules. Jules Martinez had been my friend since nursing school. We'd lost touch after she moved to D.C. to work in civil rights law. But I knew if anyone could help me untangle the legal mess Mom had left behind, it was her. Ellie, wow. It's been forever, she said when she answered, her voice warm but surprised. I didn't waste time. Jules, I need a lawyer, and I need a friend. Preferably both. By the time I finished explaining, Jules was silent on the other end. Then she sighed. I always knew Jacob was trouble. Send me the letter. I'll take a look. For the first time in days, I felt less alone. 2 nights later, Jules sat across from me in my kitchen, the letter spread out between us. She tapped it with her pen. It's not just emotional baggage. It could be evidence. If Jacob pressured your mom when she was ill, that's coercion. Depending on how the insurance transfer was handled, there might be grounds to challenge it. I blinked. But the money's gone. He's invested it, built his company with it. Jules leaned forward. Ellie, it's not just about the money. It's about the narrative. He's the golden boy because no one knows the truth. If we expose what really happened, his whole image crumbles. Her words hit me like caffeine to the veins. This wasn't just about recovering stolen money. This was about reclaiming the part of me that had been erased. The next weeks blurred into a frenzy of motion. In the mornings, I went to orientation at the university, a notepad in hand, pretending I wasn't terrified of being the oldest student in the room. I learned about health policy, about disparities in care, about community programs that actually made a difference. For the first time, my exhaustion had a purpose. At night, Jules and I combed through financial records. She pulled favors from colleagues, digging into the insurance payout, tracing signatures, finding the notary who had stamped Mom's shaky signature. That's when we discovered the bombshell. The document Jacob had used to claim the funds wasn't just signed. It was notarized 2 days after Mom had been discharged from the ICU following a stroke. She could barely hold a pen at that point. I sat back in my chair, goosebumps crawling over my skin. So what? Put a pen in her hand and told her where to sign? Jules' jaw tightened. Or worse. Either way, it's shady as hell. The anger that had simmered inside me flared white hot, but underneath it was something else. Clarity. I finally had direction. Of course, word got back to Jacob. Small towns and big families have a way of leaking information. One evening, as I left campus, my phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You're digging into things you don't understand," he said, his voice cold. "That money was mine. Mom wanted it that way." "No," I snapped. "You manipulated her." "You stole it." "You think anyone will believe you?" he sneered. "You're just the bitter spinster sister with student debt and a shabby apartment. I'm the one who turned that money into something. I'm the one people respect." For a moment, his words stung. But then I realized that was exactly the story he needed me to believe, that I was powerless, that I was nothing without his shadow. I hung up without another word, That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying my own reflection, the tired eyes, the lines etched by years of worry. For the first time, I didn't just see fatigue, I saw fire. I wasn't going to let Jacob write the ending to this story. Not anymore. This was my first step, not just toward justice, but toward becoming someone my younger self would finally recognize, someone who refused to be invisible. And as I slipped Mom's letter into a folder marked evidence, I whispered to myself, this isn't over. The following weeks tested me in ways I wasn't ready for. Jacob wasn't just sitting back while I dug into Mom's past. He fought dirty, just like I should have expected. It started with the whispers. At Sunday service, Mrs. Klein, one of Mom's old friends, wouldn't meet my eyes. At the grocery store, I overheard a neighbor muttering, "Poor Jacob. His sister's trying to ruin his reputation out of jealousy." It didn't take long to trace the rumors back to him. Jacob had always been a master manipulator, the kind who knew exactly what to say to make himself the victim. Now he was telling everyone that I was digging up graves and trying to steal money from the family legacy. By the time I stopped by Aunt Vivian's condo, a sleek high-rise on the north side of Pittsburgh, she already had the story. She opened the door, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Eleanor, really? Accusing your brother of fraud? After everything he's built? It sounds desperate." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I had hoped maybe she'd be an ally, someone who had her doubts about Jacob's spotless image. Instead, she looked at me like I was some stray cat scratching at the door. On the way home, the anger bubbled up so hot I had to pull over on the side of Route 28. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I could see the city skyline a few miles ahead, glowing with possibilities that felt forever out of my reach. That night, I vented to Jules over takeout. Cheap Chinese cartons spread across my counter. She was calm as always, scribbling notes with her pen. "He's trying to discredit you before you even get started," she said. "It's textbook, but that doesn't change the facts. If your mom signed those papers while she was cognitively impaired, that's coercion. Rumors don't erase signatures." I sighed, stabbing at a cold dumpling with my chopsticks. But without proof, it's just my word against his, and everyone seems to believe him. That's when Jules leaned forward, lowering her voice like the walls had ears. "Ellie, what if I told you I found something? Something bigger?" She slid a photocopy across the table. It was a notary log from the day Mom supposedly signed the insurance transfer. Only one problem. The timestamp showed it was 9:47 a.m. That was 2 days after her stroke, Jewel explained. And according to her hospital chart, she was still on heavy medication at that time. She couldn't even feed herself, let alone understand a legal document. I felt my breath catch. So he either forged her consent or pressured her into signing when she wasn't capable of understanding. Either way, this is our wedge. For the first time, I felt hope flicker in my chest. But hope, I learned quickly, doesn't last long in a war. The very next day, I got a call at work from my unit manager. She asked me to step into her office, her face unusually stiff. "Eleanor, I don't know how to say this, but we received a formal complaint from a patient's family. They claim you were distracted, that you made an error with their father's medication dosage." My heart dropped. I knew immediately this had Jacob's fingerprints all over it. He'd always had connections in town. Donors, board members, business partners who owed him favors. I started, but she held up a hand. "I believe you, but policy requires we investigate. You'll be on administrative leave until we clear this up." 2 weeks without pay. 2 weeks without the one thing that kept me afloat. Walking out of that hospital felt like being shoved into a storm without an umbrella. I could already hear Jacob's voice in my head. "You're nothing without your job." Bitter, unstable. That night, I sat in the dark, my apartment feeling smaller than ever. Bills piled on the counter. Student loan notices in the mail. My Corolla had started making that rattling noise again when I hit 40 miles per hour, and I knew I couldn't afford another repair. I thought about giving up, but then my phone buzzed, a voicemail notification. I pressed play, and Mom's voice filled the room. It was shaky, recorded years ago, but unmistakably hers. Ellie, honey, if you're hearing this, I probably didn't have the courage to tell you in person, but I know I've hurt you. I know I've made choices that favored Jacob, and I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting you by not giving you more responsibility, but I see now I was just blind. You've always been the one holding us together. Don't let anyone take that from you. Tears blurred my vision. I had almost deleted this old voicemail months ago, back when storage ran low on my phone. Something had told me to keep it. Now I knew why. It wasn't just sentimental. It was evidence, her own words, admitting she had favored Jacob, admitting she'd been blind. I forwarded the voicemail to Jules immediately. Her response came seconds later. This changes everything. I wiped my eyes, sat up straighter, and felt the fire inside me return. Jacob thought rumors and sabotage would break me, but what he didn't know was that every time he tried to push me down, he was giving me more reason to rise. This wasn't just a fight over money anymore, it was a fight over the truth. And I was done playing the role of the invisible sister. The voicemail from Mom became my secret weapon. Every time doubt crept in, I'd play those words again. You've always been the one holding us together. Don't let anyone take that from you. That sentence replayed in my head the night I made my decision. If Jacob wanted a war of perception, then I was going to give him one, but not with whispers or rumors, this time in the open. I organized a memorial dinner for Mom. 1 year since her passing, I sent out handwritten invitations to every family member, Aunt Vivian, the cousins, even Jacob. The card said simply, "In honor of Mom, an evening of remembrance." I knew they'd come. Our family never passed up a chance to look respectable. The night arrived cold and damp. The old community hall downtown smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Strings of warm lights hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over round tables draped in white cloth. I'd saved for weeks to rent the place, buying trays of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a chocolate sheet cake big enough to feed 30 people. As relatives trickled in, the air buzzed with polite chatter. Jacob arrived last, of course, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He swept in with a smile, hugging Aunt Vivian, shaking hands with cousins. I watched him from across the room, my heart pounding in my chest. He had no idea what was about to happen. When dinner was finished and coffee cups clinked on saucers, I stood. My palms were slick, my knees shaking under my black dress. But when I saw Mom's photo on the easel beside me, I steadied. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice softer than I intended. I wanted us to gather not just to remember Mom, but to talk about what her life and her choices really meant. Jacob shifted in his chair. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed. I took a deep breath. Most of you know me as the one who stayed behind, the one who took care of Mom when she was sick. What you don't know is the truth about what happened after Dad's accident. A murmur rippled across the room. Aunt Vivian straightened, her bracelet clinking against her glass. I pulled a small speaker from my purse, set it on the table, and pressed play. Mom's trembling voice filled the hall. "Ellie, honey, I know I've hurt you. I know I've made choices that favored Jacob. And I'm sorry. You've always been the one holding us together." The silence that followed was deafening. Forks stilled, eyes darted between me and Jacob. His face turned crimson. "This is out of context," he snapped. "She was sick. She didn't know what she was saying." I cut him off, my own voice shaking now, but with fury, not fear. "No, Jacob. She knew exactly what she was saying. She admitted she favored you. She admitted she gave you everything, and she left me with nothing but debt and exhaustion." I reached into my folder and pulled out the notary log Jules had found. This shows Mom's signature on the insurance transfer 2 days after her stroke. While she was still on heavy medication, she couldn't even feed herself, let alone understand a legal document. And you, my voice cracked, but I forced it steady. You profited off it. Gasps echoed around the table. Aunt Vivian's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. One cousin whispered, "Oh my God!" Jacob stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "This is slander. You can't just—" "Sit down." Aunt Vivian's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. Every head turned toward her. She had always been the family matriarch, the one voice no one dared cross. Now her gaze locked onto Jacob. "Did you take the money?" she asked, each word deliberate. Jacob hesitated. Just a second, but it was enough. The room knew. I stepped closer, my hands trembling, but my voice clear. "You told me I was nothing without you, that I was bitter, that Mom trusted you because you had potential. But the truth is, Jacob, you stole not just money. You stole years of my life. And tonight, I'm taking it back." The room erupted. Cousins demanded answers. An uncle muttered, "I knew something was off." Even Aunt Vivian, who had defended Jacob before, turned away from him, her lips pressed tight in disgust. For the first time, Jacob looked small. He tried to laugh it off, lifting his glass with a shaky hand. "This is ridiculous. Family business shouldn't be dragged out like this." But no one laughed with him. No one came to his defense. I felt something uncoil in my chest. Years of silence, of invisibility, dissolving in the face of truth. I wasn't invisible anymore. When the dinner ended, the hall was heavy with tension. People left in small groups, whispering under their breath, throwing Jacob glances like he was a stranger they no longer recognized. No one lingered to shake his hand. No one asked him for business advice the way they used to at every gathering. For the first time, Jacob wasn't the golden boy. He was just a man exposed. Aunt Vivian stayed behind. She sat with me at one of the long tables while volunteers cleared the dishes. Her fingers tapped against her coffee cup. Finally, she said, "I always thought he was ambitious, but this is greed. I won't fund him anymore." I looked up, startled. Aunt Vivian had bankrolled many of Jacob's projects over the years. She was the safety net that allowed him to gamble big without ever truly risking anything. Now, her words hit harder than I expected. "I'll be speaking to my attorney," she continued. "Whatever's left of your father's estate, I'll see to it that you, not Jacob, are the representative. You've earned that." Her eyes softened for the first time in years. "And Eleanor, I'm sorry. I should have paid closer attention." I nodded, my throat tight. For once, I didn't need to beg for validation. The truth had spoken for itself. News of that night traveled fast. Within a week, Jacob's carefully polished image started to crack. A local paper ran a short piece after someone leaked the notary records. His company, built on Mom's money, suddenly faced scrutiny from investors. Clients pulled back. Rumors swirled that he had cut corners, that his entire success was smoke and mirrors propped up by family money. Calls from him came almost daily, first angry, then pleading. I let most go to voicemail. When I finally answered, his voice was hoarse, stripped of arrogance. "Ellie, please, you don't understand. Everything I built, it'll collapse if this keeps spreading. I'll lose everything." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You mean the money Mom handed you while I was maxing out credit cards to keep her insulin stocked?" There was silence, then a sigh. "I can't undo the past, but maybe we can work something out, split what's left." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. "I don't want your money, Jacob. I never did. What I wanted was respect, honesty, a family that didn't treat me like I was disposable." He whispered, "So what now?" I let the words roll off my tongue slowly, firmly. "Now you live with the choices you made." And I hung up. The following weeks were strangely quiet. Without the burden of carrying Jacob's secret, I felt lighter. Even as bills still stacked on my kitchen counter, even as I clipped coupons for groceries and prayed my Corolla's brakes would last another winter. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't carrying shame anymore. Jules and I met at her office downtown to discuss the next steps. "We can pursue legal action," she explained, "but you need to decide if you want to fight for restitution, or if the exposure itself was enough." I thought about it. The lawsuits, the endless court dates, the headlines. Part of me wanted Jacob to pay every cent back. But another part, the stronger part, knew no amount of money could fix the years I had lost. "I don't need restitution," I told her. "I need resolution." She nodded as though she had expected that answer. "Then, we'll protect what's yours moving forward. Aunt Vivian's already shifting representation to you. That means you'll oversee what's left of your father's legacy." The words felt strange. Me, the forgotten daughter, the background character, was finally holding the pen to write the ending. I didn't see Jacob again until 3 months later. It was by chance at a cafe near campus where I'd stopped for coffee between classes. He looked different, thinner. His suit was still sharp, but his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. He spotted me and froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, cautiously, he approached my table. "You look different," he said quietly. "So do you." There was a pause. His eyes darted toward the floor. "I lost 2 major contracts. Investors pulled out. Vivian cut me off. It's all slipping." I didn't gloat. I didn't sneer. I just sipped my coffee and said, "Consequences, Jacob. They come for all of us eventually." He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but no words came. Finally, he muttered, "I never thought it would end up like this." I leaned forward. "Neither did I, but the difference is, you had a choice. You chose greed, you chose lies, and now you live with that." He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. Then he left, the door chiming shut behind him. I watched him go, a strange mixture of sorrow and relief tugging at my chest. He was still my brother, but he was no longer my burden. That night, I lit a candle by Mom's old rosary, the chain still broken in 2. For the first time in years, I didn't feel bitterness toward her. She had been flawed, blind in her favoritism, but she was human, and now she was gone. I whispered to the empty room, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget." And as the candle flickered low, I realized something. The real inheritance I needed wasn't money or property or recognition. It was the freedom to live without shame, without chains. The storm had passed, and though scars remained, I finally felt steady. A year later, my life looks nothing like the shadow I used to live in. I still wake up early. Old habits die hard. But now, instead of dragging myself into a 12-hour hospital shift, I lace up my sneakers and take a quiet jog through Shenley Park. The air is crisp, the smell of wet leaves sharp in my lungs. I run past families walking dogs, college kids with backpacks, retirees feeding ducks by the pond. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like an outsider watching life pass me by. I feel like I belong to it. After the memorial dinner break, I doubled down on my studies. I poured myself into the public health program, late nights with textbooks and early mornings on campus. It wasn't easy, God knows, at 38. Sitting next to 20-year-olds who scrolled TikTok between lectures made me feel ancient, but it was worth it. Each class gave me a piece of myself back, a reminder that my life wasn't over just because my family had written me off. By spring, I had finished my practicum at a community clinic. By summer, I was working with a local nonprofit that offered free health screenings and home visits to seniors living alone. It was grueling work sometimes, climbing 3 flights of stairs in a walk-up building, carrying a blood pressure cuff and a grocery bag. But it filled a hole in me that money never could. That's when the idea came. Mom had once told me, in a rare moment of honesty, that her biggest regret was not having a safety net when Dad died. "Everything collapsed at once," she had whispered from her hospital bed, and I made choices out of fear. So I created something that could have changed her story. Grace House, a small community center on the East End, just a few blocks from the bus line. We started with 1 rented storefront. Bare walls, secondhand chairs, a coffee pot that sputtered more than it brewed. But within months, Grace House became a lifeline. We hosted support groups for caregivers. We stocked shelves with donated groceries. We taught classes on financial literacy. basic healthcare, even cooking affordable meals. People who felt invisible, just like I once did, finally had a place to be seen. The first time a woman hugged me after a workshop and whispered, "You saved me," I realized this was my inheritance, not Jacob's money, not Aunt Vivian's approval, but the ability to turn pain into purpose. As for Jacob, he faded into the background. His company limped along for a while, but the investors never fully returned. Last I heard, he sold his house in the suburbs and downsized to a condo near the airport. We crossed paths occasionally at family events, birthdays, or funerals. He doesn't look me in the eye much, and that's fine. I don't need an apology he's not ready to give. His silence is its own confession. Aunt Vivian and I, surprisingly, grew closer. She started volunteering at Grace House once a week, teaching a budgeting class to single mothers. "If I can keep just one person from making the mistakes I once ignored," she told me, "then it's worth it." I think she's found her redemption too. Some nights, when the work slows down and the building empties, I sit alone in the quiet of Grace House. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, the smell of coffee lingers in the air. And I pull out Mom's letter from the locked drawer of my desk. I still read it sometimes, not to reopen the wound, but to remind myself how far I've come. Her words no longer sting the way they used to. I don't hear them as betrayal anymore. I hear them as a reflection of her own fear, her own blindness. She gave Jacob the money because she thought he needed it. She underestimated me because she couldn't see my strength. But that doesn't define me anymore. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing what was done. It's about refusing to carry the weight of someone else's choices. And I've learned that family isn't just who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you need them most. People like Jules, who stood beside me when I had nothing. People like the women and men who gather at Grace House. Strangers turned into a kind of chosen family. If you've made it this far, maybe you've carried your own hidden letter, words left unsaid, wounds left unseen. Maybe you've been told you're not enough, or watched someone else take the place you deserved. I want you to hear me when I say this. You are not invisible. Your worth isn't measured by what others choose to give you or deny you. It's measured by the resilience you show when the world underestimates you, by the boundaries you draw when someone tries to take advantage, and by the love you give freely. Even when it isn't returned, I lost money, I lost years, I lost illusions, but I found myself, and that's a fortune Jacob will never touch. Life has a way of teaching us lessons in the quietest and sometimes the hardest moments. For me, it came through years of sacrifice, of carrying the weight for others, and then discovering the truth, that the people I thought would stand beside me had made choices that left me behind. At first, I thought the betrayal itself would define me, but over time I learned that what truly defines us is how we respond when life isn't fair. Here's the truth. You can't control what others take from you, or the ways they may underestimate you. But you can control what you build from the pieces left in your hands. Sometimes that means starting small, taking one step toward a new purpose, forgiving where you can, and drawing clear boundaries where you must. And sometimes it means letting go of the approval you'll never receive and choosing to write your own ending anyway. If you're carrying disappointment or regret, ask yourself, how can I turn this pain into purpose? It doesn't have to be grand. It can be as simple as showing up for someone else, starting a small project that matters to you, or finally setting down a burden that was never truly yours. If this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need the reminder that they are not invisible, and maybe leave a comment about a time you discovered your own strength when life tested you. Wishing you peace, clarity, and the quiet confidence to know that your worth was never up for debate.